in that subtraction, first off, using our rule, we're going to square the first one. So it's x squared. It is 2 times the AB, so 2 times 4x gives us 8x. You didn't have it done, again, like I mentioned yesterday, you didn't do the homework, take out a piece of paper and write this down. You might not exactly know what we're doing, but at least you'll have something to look back on when you actually do the homework, okay? We're going to square the last one. So that's what our rule says. If you have a plus b and you square it, it's a squared plus 2 times ab plus b squared is our pattern. So it's going to be plus 16. I'm going to have a minus, and I want to put this in a parenthesis. And the reason I want to put it in the parenthesis is that I have to take the x squared minus 1 times x times 2 minus 2x. Negative 1 times negative 1 is a plus 1. And so here's where the mistake happens. People go, oh, x squared minus x squared, 8x minus 2x is 6x. But it is subtracting this whole thing. So that's like a negative 1 times all of these. That changes the sign. So this actually becomes like a plus out in front here. And then, yes, it is negative x. It is positive 2x, and it's a negative 1. So x squared minus x squared is 0x squared. 8x plus 2x gives us 10x, not 6x. 16, and in this case, not plus 1 to give us 17, but minus 1 to give us 15. Okay? So you just need to be careful when you're doing that subtraction, and we'll look at that on that homework quiz that you guys took, also to look at that problem. Number 19, I think the most common mistake is that everyone thought it was just like our problem yesterday and kind of like the ones up above at 17. It's saying this side is 6, and it's saying that each side of this is x. So how do I find the shaded region? I take 6 squared and 19 minus x squared. It wasn't adding 6 to each side of that, like the one in our home, or the notes. So that's how they got 36 minus x squared. I thought it was confusing in a little ways for some of you as you wrote it, but it's telling us this is 6 and this was the x. Okay. Looking at a couple other questions. 41, 43. So 41. When you take a look at 41, again, you get to the quiz tomorrow and you're doing problem 41. And you have 8r minus 5s. And it's squared. You get to the quiz tomorrow and I don't remember the pattern. Don't worry about the pattern, right? What do you know this means? It means 8r minus 5s times 8r minus 5s. And then how do you do it? You can make that box like we did on Monday when we did lesson H3. You can do distributive property. You can do FOIL. But if you remember the rule, 8r times 8r is going to give us 64r to the second. The middle term is going to be a minus 40r and another negative 40r. That gives us a negative 80r s. And I have the s right there, okay? Because we had an s back here. Is that the same as taking 8 times 5 and doubling it? 8 times 5 is 40. You double it, 80. Or 40rs and another negative 40rs. Okay. Now we're going to take the last one in each one. So negative 5 times negative 5, positive 25 s squared. Is that the same as if we would have used the pattern that we have up here of squaring the first one, taking minus 2 times the middle 2 terms, multiplying those, and then plus the b squared? So when you get stuck on the quiz, don't worry about remembering the rules. Write out and make your box or solve the problem like we did at the beginning of the week. So 43 was another one. The only thing different with 43 is you just have a lot more variables with it, I would say. And so when you look at 43 and you take p to the fourth and square it, what happens when you take p to the fourth? If you are taking p to the fourth and we square that, that is now going to become p to the what? Oh, p to the 8th. And when you take 9q squared and you square it, so we do have to have a middle term, it's going to be a minus. That last term is taking 9q squared and you're squaring it. So 9 squared is 81. q squared when you square it, we're multiplying, is q to the 4th. This one is going to have a p to the 4th and a q to the 2nd. You're taking 9 times 1, which is 9, and doubling it, which gives us a negative 18, if you are looking at that. And if you're still struggling with those, again, write it out as that square. Question 49, as you are looking at number 49, you should have had, as you multiply that, you're going to multiply the first two together. That gives us 9w to the 4th. When we do our middle term, this is a sum and a difference. You're doing sum and difference, you should have had that middle term to come out to be a negative 3w cubed z squared. This should have been to the 6th power, right? The middle term cancels, and you are left with a minus z to the 4th. Use that box method, use the FOIL if you get stuck as you are doing those problems, okay? 15 questions, 50 points. So I can classify the polynomials. There's going to be 3 questions. The classifying, that's like that homework quiz I just gave you today. You're going to name it, that's 2 points of each question. And then putting it in the right form is going to be the other 2 points of each question. So when I am looking at this one, there are 3 questions with a total of 12 points total. Okay? So when I look at those questions, it's going to be just like on the homework quiz that you got back. And those of you who didn't take the homework quiz, you can just kind of go through it with us when I put that up next. But that is going to be 2 points for naming it, because you usually have 2 names, like you have cubic, and then you have binomial, or cubic trinomial, or cubic monomial, and then putting it in standard form. I can add and subtract polynomials. There's going to be 5 questions, 17 points. There are a couple questions that are 2 points. Why? They are super easy. There's some that are up to, the most points is 5. I can multiply polynomials. That's the box method. That's FOIL. That's distributive property. Okay? So when you are looking at those, there's going to be 5 questions with those, and it'll be a total of 15 points. So each one is worth 3. So box, FOIL, distributive property. Question?
Will it tell us which one we have to do, or do we get a pick?
I don't care which one you do. If you want to do boxes for all of them, you want to do FOIL, distributed, doesn't matter. All I want you to do is simplify and get rid of the parentheses. The last one is I can rewrite it by factoring. You had to do 1 factoring on that quiz that we took the other day. It will be a 6, this will be 2 questions, 6 points, so 3 points each. When you factor, that's when you put the greatest common factor out in front, and we're going to look at that from your quiz. And then you put the binomial or trinomial inside that, okay? So, question 8. So it says, do you understand what standard form? Write it in standard form, okay? Yep, which one? This is what you're going to be doing on question 1, the first 3 questions on the quiz. It'll say, write it in descending order and tell me the name. This will be a 2-point question, negative 4x squared. You have to go from the largest power to the smallest or to the number. You are naming it, looking at, it was a 2, that makes it quadratic. There are 3 terms. Trinomial. You should be able to spell it correctly. It is not a trinomial with T-R-Y, it's T-R-I. When you are looking at this one, you want to put, as you are looking here, you should have noticed that, oh, I have to add together my like terms. 8x plus x, 8x plus 1x is 9x. Quiet, please. This next one, this is where you're going to be doing that multiplying. So now, besides doing it just multiplying with distributive property, we're also going to have the other type of multiplying like you've done Monday and Tuesday of this week. This last one, factoring. You'll be asked to factor your greatest common factor. What I had some people do is they showed me this problem and they said, oh, I'm going to divide each of these by 5x squared. I agree. That is how we started solving those problems. But your answer is putting this greatest common factor first and then leaving what you would multiply to get the original problem. Yeah,
So, if I answer this, then we have that.
that should be the right answer for number 4 on the quiz, correct. Yep, so when it says here that you are going to factor it, you need to have the greatest common factor, just like this number 4 that we just looked at your quiz. Has to have the greatest common factor and then tell me. So that if I would check this and I multiply these two together, I get 5x to the 4th. And if I multiply these two together, I get 15x to the 3rd. If I multiply using the 2, it gives me what I started with. That's how you can check the factor, right? If I'm looking at this one, I could factor out the common factor, and that's how you should be able to check those going back and forth. Okay? The biggest mistake is I had people, this negative changes everything inside the parenthesis to the opposite. So you want to think of it as a plus, this becomes a positive, negative, and negative. And then you are adding like terms. So if you didn't get those, this will be on the notes today. I would like you to turn, if you look at the worksheet where you're doing the odds, page 30 and 31, that's kind of, like what you did on going back and multiplying and doing those. This one is kind of like what your quiz looks like. You're going to be asked to tell the degree. You're going to be asked to put it in standard form and name it. You're going to be asked to look at each part of those. So that's page 510 that you were taking a look at. The other thing, we're going to take a small homework quiz that you're going to look at. But what I also want you to notice is that on the Pearson, you do not have to do any of these, but those of you that are really struggling, I don't get this, and you've done all the homework, these are more practice. I would not maybe do the mid-chapter quiz is 30 questions, but each of these is 4 questions, so you could easily go and do those quizzes as you are looking at them.